It's Edge Radio Australia. Time for a very, very special, a special show, if you like, but a very special guest, a couple of very special guests indeed. I will go around the room here now. First, to my right, the man, the By the Way Adventures, the superstar himself, Dom. Great to have you here, mate.
Yeah, mate. Fantastic. It's been a while.
It has been a while. But, geez, you deliver. What can I say? Look at the illustrious guest that you brought in today.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to introduce both of you because, quite frankly, yours is a story that I have followed, but not as closely as I would have liked to, and I really want to hear from you about this. The man who probably knows more about the lack of justice in the justice system in WA, probably more than anyone, who was falsely accused, who went to jail and went through an incredibly hard time because of it. Great to see you. Thank you for being here, John Button.
Well, thank you, Evan. It's a pleasure and an honour to be on your show.
Oh, look, mate, it is all our honour, let's face it. But let's be frank. I mean, look, great man and all, but you wouldn't be a great man without the wonderful woman beside you. Helen here, of course. Now, Helen's done the wise option. She said no mic for me. So Helen will be looking after the knitting for us. Yes, but she's opted for no microphone, so I love that. But I love the support. It's great to have family here to help you through these sorts of things. So,
and can I just mention that without Helen, I wouldn't actually be here at all. So
that's she
has been that massive support.
I'm so glad you said that, mate, because you do need someone in your life, and your support system. We talk a lot about in this station about support systems. We talk a lot. We've been doing a lot lately about masculinity and a lot of men who are really suffering from not getting that support. Where it's just wonderful to have someone in your life that could. We've actually had the opportunity to interview Lindy as well, so that's yeah, absolutely. There's a lot to be said there. So, all right, just jumping into it anyway, John. If we could go into the subject matter let's just, if you could run through your story. I appreciate there's a lot of construction noise behind us, and I do apologise for that. Nothing I can do, unfortunately. But let's jump into your story because it's quite unique, mate.
So you just want a brief outline of the whole lot right through from go to
let's start at the beginning. Yep.
Well, it's a very naive 18-year-old,
right?
Going out with a beautiful young 16-year-old girl, my girlfriend, and as she turned 17, we started talking of marriage, and we're going to get engaged on her 18th birthday. We're going to get engaged.
Fantastic.
And we had a wonderful 7 months of romance and courtship, and life was beautiful.
Okay.
But this is back in 1963, and as we know, the Australia Day long weekend in 1963, January 26th, Eric Cook, the last man to hang in WA, went round and murdered quite a number of people.
He did, yes.
A fortnight later, on the 9th of February, 1963, was my 19th birthday.
Okay.
And Rosemary had, should I say wisely, said, John, you must at least spend some time at home with your parents. Oh, gosh, why would a young 19-year-old boy?
What a different world.
It was. But I agreed, and we went home. And while we were there, my parents went out for the night, actually, because they knew I'd never come home on my birthday when I had a girlfriend to go out with.
Why would you, right?
So they left, and Rosemary and I had a simple little argument over a little bit of fish.
Okay.
And the reason for that was I was so engrossed in the happenings of that afternoon when Brian William Robinson, the second last man to hang in WA, shot down Noel Isles, a policeman in Belmont that afternoon, shot down a passenger in a car and commandeered a taxi and his driver to take him out to the Nangawa pine plantation.
I've heard this story.
And this was being shown live on, I suppose, a fairly new outside broadcast. Person had never seen things like this before.
It's only 63. We're talking about the year that JFK was assassinated. This is a long time ago. It's a very different world.
Absolutely. And I was engrossed, and a hand came across and pinched my bit of fish, and I told my brother what I thought of it, but I said some nasty words. It was Rosemary that has taken it.
Right.
She stood up and said, well, if you're going to be like that, I'm going home, picked up her handbag and walked off.
Right.
I followed her in the car, begged her forgiveness, But as I found out in later years, a woman doesn't forgive a man immediately. You've got to suffer for a while first. So,
Wise words.
yes.
A man of experience.
and so I parked, watched the walk out of sight at Subiaco, under the railway lines, up Stubbs Terrace, in the dark. But what I didn't know that Eric Cook, who not only shot people, for the last 5 years he'd been going around running down young ladies late at night on a Saturday night around bus stations or railway stations,
Right.
driving up behind them and running them down. And over the last 5 years, he'd run down 7 other women in 5 separate accidents.
No way. I didn't know that.
No, and he never, none of them died. Seriously injured, but none died.
Okay.
And he was driving past the Shenton Park railway station as Rosemary walked up past it in the dark, did a U-turn, came up behind her, ran her down. I came up maybe a minute or 2 minutes after
Yep.
this happened. I saw her laying in the sand about 4 metres off the edge of the road. Pulled up, immediately rushed over. She was unconscious, bleeding profusely from a head wound above her right eye. Without thinking, I scooped her up, put her in the car, rushed her off to a doctor's surgery.
That's what you would do.
Yeah.
That,
I
that
did.
makes
I
complete sense
panicked.
to me.
And the doctor, I knew the doctor, it was a family doctor, and
Right.
at that time I used to mow his lawn, so I knew where he was, I knew he lived on the premises, so I rushed straight there, banged on his front door. He said, bring him into the surgery. I did. He said, it's obviously a hit and run, I've got to call an ambulance now, and the police. So the ambulance came, took her away, and the police turned up. Now the police have been taken off this manhunt. Now, the police aren't happy people at the fortnight earlier. They'd have all these people murdered. Their superiors on their back. The public's on their back.
Oh, the publicity was not good for the police. No doubt about it.
And then that very day, one of their own had been murdered, and they were now trying to find him in the Namgabba Pine Plantation. And it would appear they would have got a call on the radio saying, it looks like we've got another one. A young girl's been run down in Shenton Park.
Right.
So they come down to interview me at the doctor's surgery. Not too happy. Even had the 383 rifle sitting on the back seat of their car, still from where they've come from. And they walked past my car into the doctor's surgery.
Right.
And as they walk past my car, they look at the front of my car and it's dented. The left-hand grille is dented. And they look on the bonnet of the car and there's drops of blood on it. And they walked in, they said, what happened? I said, we had an argument.
Oh, not the wisest thing to say, my friend. My word. But
Right.
He's only young.
exactly. You're what?
Yeah.
You're not even 19 at the stage, are you?
Well, just turned that day, yes.
That day.
And very naive.
Right.
I'd grown up believing the police. You asked them the time, directions. They were your friends. I believed in them. And they looked at me and I could see straight away that their attitude changed.
Sure.
I went back, pointed out where I'd found her.
Yep.
About 4 metres off the edge of the road in the sand. I pointed out the pool of blood there in the sand. They then took me back to Central and they wanted a statement,
Sure.
which I gave them a very brief statement, which stated that, that I'd found her, and took her off to the doctor's surgery and that. And he put it aside and said, we don't want that. We want a confession. Why did you do it? It must have been you. Damage to the car, blood on the car. You had an argument. It's obvious it was you. I was shocked.
Hang on. You've got a guy out there who the police know are running young women down,
Yeah.
right? With murders going on. Funny enough, I've got a little personal connection to this through my mum, which I might even just speak about later. But as far as Perth, as I understand, was living in quite a state of fear, certainly for young women at the time, because we'd not seen something like this. Perth, a very innocent place in 1963, I would tend to think. And you've got this serial killer out there who's cataloguing and going around and actually doing research and finding out where women live so that he can murder them. Now, you know, their efforts should have been on that, right?
Yes.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I can see why they link the two together. There's damage on the car. There's blood. I get that, right?
Yes.
But you know, geez, you would think that you tend to want to be thorough and want to be actually believe in justice, not just the law. And I often will say this: the police department, or whatever you want to call it, they like to call themselves the police force. Right? I think that's quite telling. It's certainly not a service anymore. It's very much a police force. So,
Yes.
yeah, that naivety. I grew up with that naivety as well. That if you were in trouble, you went to a policeman. I certainly don't live with that naivety anymore.
No. it's so sad. But
Yeah,
I
it
think
is.
at the time, they were so uptight about everything that happened.
Of course.
They had to have a very quick
Yep.
solution, and they saw it here quite easily, and they knew that just a little bit of pressure, we can get a confession.
Sure.
And they did after about 4 hours. I can't remember much about this, but I do remember being punched.
Yeah.
I remember being under the table and they pulling me out and putting me back in the chair. I don't know how many times I was punched, but
It's a horrific thing to go through.
I've never been a brave person. I've always tried to use my mind to get out of problems.
He's not afraid.
You know? So I thought, what can I do to stop them, take their mind off this? And I said, how's Rosemary? And they turned around and said, she's dead. She died a couple of hours ago. Well, that did it for me. The one girl in my life had gone.
Yeah.
Just at that moment.
Someone you want to marry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm devastated. And to me, I don't want to be here. Do what you like. I don't care. Shoot me now. I don't care. And I said, okay, whatever you want. Write what you like. I'll sign it. I don't care. I want to get out of here. And that was it. So they wrote out this confession for me.
Oh, nice of them to do that for you.
They did. They typed it
Yeah.
out. The only thing I asked them to change in that confession, they put in, he was doing 45 miles an hour. I said, well, hang on. No, I was only doing 35 because that was the speed limit. And I didn't want to get charged with speeding.
Oh,
I mean,
like
and to
I
be
said,
frank,
think
and
of
I
it.
don't want to make light of it, okay, but that kind of shows where your mind's at,
It
right?
was,
Yeah.
You're not in. You've just lost someone you love, right? Someone that you wanted to marry. This is at this stage of your life, the love of your life.
Yeah.
Okay, you are not thinking rationally. You're thinking about a speeding ticket when you're talking about a murder charge, or or it could have been many other charges, right?
Yeah.
So this is it just shows that, and taking the physicality into it, the fact that they've gone and they've literally beaten you. And I will look straight down the barrel of the camera. I can tell you right now, police do this. Police still to this very day. I have been punched by police. Okay.
Yeah.
I have been kneed in the groin by police. All right. I tell you right now, police are not the the great bastions of the law. Now, I'm not saying I don't want to cover every police officer with the same brush.
No, absolutely not.
But
no.
but yeah, there's some great men and women
yes,
out there.
yes.
Okay, but unfortunately, a lot of people who might have a thug mentality or might have insecurities, who might have been a bully growing up, they gravitate towards the police force. That's a fact.
they
It-
still
it
do
does.
it nowadays.
course
Like my brother was held in custody and without a lawyer present or anything, and he was stripped naked and in the middle of winter, put in a room with the air conditioner put on flat out for 19 hours. He was shivering uncontrollably, and this is what they do is torture
Yeah, of course, it's torture.
to
Yeah,
get a confession. They did it with Andrew Mallard,
yeah.
Yes,
and they got him. They actually went out and got marijuana and got him stoned to get a confession.
So many are
And this
there?
is 1963. Again, a very different world, right? And a very different attitude from law enforcement back then.
Hmm.
They think, you know what, we've got our guy. Also, as you said before, they're feeling public pressure at the same time because there's this lunatic out there. As I say, I've had this conversation many years ago. My mum and I had this conversation about Eric Edgar Cook, and short version is my mum's room was actually listed on Eric Edgar Cook's list.
Oh.
So she was considered to be, yes, he had a list of houses he was going to, whether they had dogs, the side gate, the entry, he had all of this when he was,
Yeah.
And my mum's bedroom was actually listed there, that there was a young girl inside. So quite frankly, if he hadn't been apprehended, I probably wouldn't exist today.
yes.
So Eric Edgar Cook, I've got that. I obviously talked to my mum about it, and she would say, she said, Perth changed.
It
It went from
did.
this beautiful innocence.
Tell
know,
me
Absolutely.
about
yeah.
that, because when Dad was
Helen, I want you to have that mic. Hey, come on, let's get you mic'd up.
Dad, saw me, he'd come home and I was looking out the window, and Dad said, "What are you looking out the front window for?" "Oh, I'm just interested." And then Dad said, "Come on, you tell me the truth.
Mhm.
I don't want any lies or anything." And I said, "Dad, there's a man out there, and he's knocking on the door and he wants to talk to me."
And he'd followed you home
Mm.
from Scarborough
Yeah.
to Manning. Yes.
In Manning,
In Manning.
right?
And I was on the bus and I hopped off and he walked after me, and I didn't realise who it was. I didn't know who.
Why
it was.
would you?
Yeah.
And anyway, Dad came to the front door and he said, "Can I help you?" And he said, "Why?" "I'm just waiting for my friend." And Dad said, "That's not your bloody friend."
Good on
And
you.
I thought, "Dad, don't swear." And he was told, Dad said, "Get
Go.
off my property.
Yep.
Get off my
Mm.
land and bugger off."
Yeah.
And that was my dad didn't swear.
Good
And-
on him.
But this was, as he said after, he said, I'm certain that was ever caught.
Yeah.
So
Well,
we-
it very
we've-
well could be. As I
We've
say,
all
it's a
had a
changing
close
time.
encounter with it. Everyone in Perth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
he
now
was a
you know, he's
horrible man.
oh
Yeah.
And
vile.
We went over to see his wife quite often just to be there for her because he was being so. We didn't even know what he was doing.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
I know, but it's so.
another story in
But
itself.
Oh,
getting back to that confession,
Yes.
I have here in here a letter from the Attorney General to Malcolm McCusker, who was the governor,
Sure.
and it was a letter about Peter Mickelberg going for compensation.
Okay.
And Peter actually sent me this letter. He said, "If you want to use this
Mhm.
in your fight, do so."
Good on you.
And in it, the Attorney General puts in there, basically, of course, it's worded very nicely, how the confession that was taken from me was taken under
Under
very
great duress.
great duress and big problems. Yes.
And
So I've got the governor and the Attorney General know what happened, but they will admit that there was anything wrong.
the legal fraternity in Western Australia is so absolutely, it just incestuous is what it is. You know, when I see that, I see lawyers who constantly perjure themselves. Who I've watched this path, and sadly this has become part of my life, which is something that I follow a lot. And
Yeah.
you watch literally lawyers who perjure themselves constantly, who pervert rather the course of justice, and then they become judges. And you think to yourself, like, seriously, we all know you're as dirty as they come.
And
The evidence is there. You've got in a current situation here in WA right now where Quigley, who has literally said that they will not pursue perjury in any of the courts and not to pursue anyone under the age of 18, particularly if they come from a particular ethnic background. Like, where is this care for the public? Where is this position of, they're in a great position of power, right? And I hate to see it when it's exploited like this. Now, in your case, how many years did it take for your name to be officially cleared?
almost 40.
Or
40 years. We fought for almost 40 years to
that's
right.
just
to have it
disgraceful.
finally cleared. But but getting back to 1963, when my lawyer came and saw me,
Yep.
Ken Hatfield, top lawyer in Perth he was.
Okay.
He saw me in death row in Fremantle prison. I was there for 3 months, waiting to be hanged
Wow.
almost. And I told, he says, "John, all they've got against you is that confession. Why did you sign it?" And when I told him, he said, "Oh, John, you can't say that in court."
Why can't you say that in court?
Because
That's kind of the point.
In 1963,
Yep.
nobody would believe that the police ever did that. And he said, if you
Mhm.
try and say the police beat you up, get a confession,
Mhm.
they will immediately say you're lying and they'll hang you. So when I went to court and I was asked, did they beat you up? I had to think and say, no. I couldn't afford to be hanged.
Here's the thing: the lawyer asked the question knowing the answer, so
Yeah.
it's very curious that they would actually ask that question. Did they beat you up? That's very interesting in
Yes.
itself.
I know.
Right.
So
And you're a man there who wants to. You're at this stage, what, early 20s, I would gather.
well, I just turned 19.
Oh, but you okay? I was just.
It was
I
my
thought
19th birthday. I think I was 9 months and 3 months, 9 years, 19 and 3 months when I went to trial.
Oh my word! So I've made the presumption that it took a year or two to get to jail.
no,
My word!
only
Oh,
months then.
wow,
yeah.
it's court rather.
Oh.
That's certainly not how it works anymore.
Punch it through, didn't they?
Yeah, didn't they? And I mean, that is a very, very good point. And also, you're fighting for your life. Right
Yeah.
then, in that time, that there were still hanging people. Right, this was still very much part of the
was.
system.
Yeah.
So, life, self-preservation, I would assume, and I don't want to put words in your own
No,
mouth.
but
You're kind of thinking, life in jail or death. I mean, what are you going to take?
I know. And then to make it worse, after my trial had finished and the jury was sent out, and I believe as they walked out, 10 members of the jury said to each other, let's hang him.
Really?
As they walked out. They came back a few hours later with their verdict. And this is word for word what happened. The clerk of court stands up and says, members of the jury, have you reached a verdict? We have, Your Honour. How say you? Is John Button guilty or not guilty? And the foreman stood up and said, not guilty, Your Honour. I was over the moon. I wasn't going to hang. I was out of here. I'm going home.
Imagine.
I looked at the back door of the court. I thought, can I jump out of the dock? Can I run for the door? Would I be allowed to? Could anyone actually stop me? And 15 seconds later, after thinking all this, the clerk of court says, is that the verdict of you all? And the foreman says, oh, I'm terribly sorry, Your Honour. We made a mistake. We find him guilty.
Oh,
Oh,
my. I didn't know that. That's just
Kidding me.
horrific.
I've got that on tape too, would you believe? So,
Gee.
yeah.
Wow.
And
Look, this is an incredible story, honestly, John, and thank you so much, Helen, for coming in as well. I want a mic on you next time, trust me. I think well, look, this is a team effort, okay, and family is so important, and
It
being able
is,
to talk about this sort of thing and
Yeah.
have that support system. So
We ended up with beautiful children.
exactly,
We did.
exactly. So
Beautiful
there's a great sort of
yeah,
into that story.
Yeah, my son
Yep.
is over in Orange now.
Okay.
He very well. I'll tell you quickly about
who's
Gregory went through university.
Yep.
And
and he became a vet.
yeah, I know, but I'm just thinking.
He didn't become a police officer.
Oh no, he became a vet, but then he went back to uni again to.
Yeah, he went back to uni, and he was going to be a what was it with the dogs, wasn't it, John?
Well,
He loves animals.
he loved being a vet, but he couldn't bear to put them down.
Right.
So he became a doctor. He's now an emergency specialist and running the Orange Hospital in New South Wales.
Fantastic.
He's a lieutenant colonel in the army, and because he's a vet, not only does he teach all the medics, goes
Yeah.
down to teach the medics, he also goes down to the vet to look after the bomb dogs and all that.
Fantastic. Look at that. And that's look, it is wonderful that you guys have gone on and had that freedom. You've found your freedom and you're very lucky. And as I say, that's something I want to revisit in another time.
Yeah.
This is such an important thing to talk about. Now, next time we meet, we're actually going to bring also a lawyer in on the story as well, Adrian, who will have some more information.
No, he's not a lawyer.
Oh, hang on. So I'm getting myself mixed
Yeah.
up there. Look at that.
Yeah, you got that.
I saw. I have the right to remain silent. There we go.
No, he's been working on the artificial intelligence on
I'm sorry.
On
I'm
the-
jumping the gun there.
the
Look at that.
justice system.
All right,
That'll be
there we
lovely.
go. So, in fact, he's far more qualified than a lawyer in that case. All right, but we're going to basically what I'm going to get to is we're going to come back with more information, and we want to talk about this further. So, thank you so much for being here, John, Helen.
Pleasure.
Wonderful to have you both here. I am looking forward to over the next sort of weeks and the progressive time. Let's have you back a couple of
Eric was
times.
a terrible man.
I
because
thoroughly agree.
When he actually said that, Dad came home, and I was looking through the curtain in the lounge room, and Dad said, "Helen, what are you looking at?"
I know you told us, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
and he's still part of our lives today. Everybody's life. Everybody knows of him, and everybody has a story to tell.
Yeah, yeah. Well, look, I tell you right now, that's when the system worked. When an evil human being was hanged. But you are definitely not an evil man by any stretch of imagination, John. And it's an absolute pleasure to have you here. We'll end on that. Thank you very much for being part of it. We'll please continue to follow the story, do the old like, share, and all the sort of things that we do, because that's the best way to keep track of this. Keep track of this guy here, by the way, Adventures, an absolute legend, old Dom. Mate, I follow your adventures. You know, I live vicariously through the holidays. So, with that, we'll come back, as I say, in the coming weeks and cover this with more detail as well as we go. Thank you very much for being part of this.
Thanks,
Radio
Aaron.
Australia.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.